Welcome, lords and ladies, back to the realm. I am your host, the Goat King, and today we dive back into the Starfinder playtest material with the Solarian. You are a conduit for the stellar forces of the cosmos, a solar knight. The powers of gravity and light represent the extremes of these forces, and you can attune yourself between them. As an agent of this cycle, you manifest an array of solar equipment and use your own connection to stellar forces to empower them. Regardless of which extreme of the stellar spectrum you prefer, you can change your attunement between them to take advantage of bespoke powers earned through hard meditation and practice. Let's see, their key attribute is strength. I believe in first edition, they were a charisma class. Yes. So, they've switched over to strength. Let's see, their hit points are 10 plus their constitution modifier. During combat encounters, you get into the thick of things, getting close to foes and attacking with your manifestations. You shift between battlefield control and close attacks, depending on your current solar attunement. During social encounters, your stellar arrangement helps determine how you act in social circles. You may be a chatterbox who makes friends easily, or use lies or displays of your abilities to cow those around you. While exploring, you want to be near the front of the group to quickly get into the fight. You want to overcome challenges, like moving debris, climbing strange terrain, or otherwise maneuvering in alien environments. And in downtime, you balance your downtime between necessary meditations and using your skills for labor. You might also create your own dedicated following and build a monastery to train new generations of Solarians. Let's look at their initial proficiencies. Expert in perception, reflex, and will, trained in fortitude. Skills, trained in athletics, one or more depending on their arrangement, which is probably their subclass. And then 3 plus intelligence modifier. Trained in simple, martial, and unarmed attacks, light, medium, and unarmored defense. And of course, trained in their class DC. Stellar attunement. As a Solarian, your existence cycles between the aspects of stars. You begin with 2 aspects, photon, the power of stars to emit heat, light, and plasma, or graviton, the power of stars to attract and imprison objects through gravity. At any time, you are considered graviton-attuned, photon-attuned, or unattuned. Many of your abilities have additional effects based on your current attunement, and some abilities swap your current state of attunement to another state. Your default state of attunement is dedicated by the favored attunement of your selected stellar arrangement. In encounter mode, you can use the attune action to reattune to your favored state. In exploration mode, you can take the attunement control activity to ensure that you are in constant control of what state of attunement you begin combat in, regardless of your favored attunement. So, attune, it's a single action. Concentrate once per round. You steady your body and mind to attune yourself to your stellar focus. If you are unattuned or not in your favored state, you become attuned to the favored attunement of your stellar arrangement. You can also manifest any of your solar manifestations if they are currently dormant, and if you have the free hands to use them. In addition to the above usage, you can also attune as a free action when you roll initiative. So what we're seeing here is already quite different from First Edition's Solarian. First Edition Solarian was very much focused on balancing the 2 sides, and when they attuned, they could move either direction. This specifically just moves towards your favored direction. Let's check out attunement control. While exploring, you have an attuned state of your choosing. If you attune as a free action when you roll initiative, you can select your attunement regardless of your stellar arrangement's favored attunement. I should wait to speak on that more until we've seen more of the abilities and how they affect attunement. Solar manifestations. Your deep understanding of the stellar forces of the universe manifest in a variety of tangible ways. You can create and maintain 3 different manifestations: solar flare, Solar Nimbus, and a solar weapon. Your manifestations temporarily vanish if you become unattuned. Solar Flare, a small mote of solar power hovers nearby or appears embedded on some part of your body, such as the palm of your hand or on your face. This flare of energy can unleash energy. In a short range, that's a bit of a clumsy sentence. Your solar flare is otherwise treated as a martial ranged weapon in the brawling weapon group. Let's see. Solar Shot, single action, has the attack trait and attune trait. You use flare to unleash a directed blast of energy at a target. Make a ranged strike against the armor class of a creature in range. Add your strength modifier to the damage roll. Your attunement determines the damage type and the maximum range of the attack. If your Graviton attuned, it does 1d8 bludgeoning damage, has a maximum range of 15 feet, and on a critical success you can attempt a trip using your athletics, even if you don't have a free hand or are not adjacent to the target. When you're Photon attuned, this does 1d6 fire damage, with a maximum range of 30 feet. On a critical success, the target also takes 1d6 persistent fire damage. And every 4 levels, the damage increases by 1 die. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to think about, because assuming that's the main ranged option for the class, they are pretty short range. Usually 30 feet will get you there, but in a setting where ranged attacks, including things like sniper rifles, are much more common, and you might have people attacking you from 150 feet away, the Solarian might choose to have a ranged weapon, like a really long-range ranged weapon, just as a backup. Interesting. Okay. Solar Nimbus. A layer of photonic energy surrounds you, overlaying your body or worn armor. This layer of star stuff provides you with protection that works alongside existing armor. It appears as a layer of glowing light or solid darkness depending on your current state of attunement. The general appearance and shape of the Nimbus is your choice and could appear as a thin layer of energy or imposing spiked energy armor layered atop your existing equipment. This design has no impact on its function and does not provide any additional bonuses. Let's see, you get a reaction, Nimbus Surge. With the attuned trait, the trigger, you take damage from a melee attack. If you're Graviton attuned and use this reaction, the triggering creature must succeed a Fortitude save against your class DC or be pushed 5 feet away from you. If you're Photon attuned, the triggering creature takes fire damage equal to half your level, rounded up. I did forget to mention about this solar shot. Maybe I'll push this clip back in time. But that solar shot, just adding your strength modifier to the damage roll is cool. Especially with it being limited to such a short range. Instead of that being a range increment, that's just the max range. But getting to add your full strength modifier to ranged attacks is nice. Okay, let's see. Solar Weapon. Through sheer will, you can call forth a tangible weapon comprised of the essence of stars. When you attune, you can manifest your weapon as part of the action. Okay, let me read that again. When you attune, you can manifest your weapon as part of the action. You attune as a free action when you roll initiative. So, you just quick draw. Every Solarian can just, their weapons out when they start combat. That was cool, but I didn't want that to go unnoticed. When manifesting your weapon, it appears in a free hand of your choice, unless it has the free hand trait, at which point it can manifest in any hand. Your solar weapon is a martial melee weapon. It deals 1d8 of your choice of bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. You can select up to 2 of the following traits for your weapon. Alternatively, you can select the reach trait for your weapon instead of 2 of the following traits. Disarm, grapple, parry, sweep, versatile, but only for physical damage types. Free hand, non-lethal, shove, or trip. You can select one of the following weapon groups for your weapon to be a part of. Cool. That's just deciding what critical specialization effect it's going to have when you get where you can use those. You can change the properties of your solar weapon through the Reforged Solar Weapon activity Your solar weapon gains additional benefits based on your current attunement when you're graviton attuned. When you successfully strike a creature using your solar weapon, that creature treats all squares adjacent to the square where they were struck as being difficult terrain until the end of its turn. Lock them down. Which, that's a common thing we're seeing with the graviton things. With the Nimbus Surge, graviton pushes people away. With the solar shot, it can be used to trip them. And with the weapon, it creates the area around them, or makes the area around them difficult terrain for them. If you're photon attuned when you successfully strike a creature with your solar weapon, you deal an additional amount of fire damage equal to half your level, rounded up. Reforge solar weapon. Concentrate. You spend 10 minutes focusing on the composition of your solar weapon. You can change the damage type of your weapon, the current selected traits for your weapon, and the weapon group that it belongs to. Your weapon maintains your selection until the next time. Reforge solar weapon, you just spend 10 minutes to make all these decisions again. Okay, Solarian arrangement. This has been referred to several times, so it'll be good to figure out what it is. As adherents of the cycle of creation and destruction, Solarians maintain strong personal beliefs that attach themselves to specific aspects of the cycle. At first level, your arrangement grants you a favored attunement, which determines your starting attunement state in combat, unless you've used the attunement control exploration action, and what state the attune action attunes you to. It also provides you with the initial revelation and proficiency with a particular skill. You also gain advanced and greater revelations at later levels. The Solarian arrangements are described in detail on page yada yada yada. Okay, let's go take a look at those. Okay, each Solarian follows a specific stellar arrangement. Okay, balanced. Okay, this balanced is probably just what the whole class was back when. You find yourself existing between the gravitonic and photonic extremes of stellar forces, believing that a balance between the two is where one finds perfection. This means that you often swap between attunements in your daily life and enjoy using graviton and photon abilities in an interweaved tapestry. Your favorite attunement is both. You choose whichever one you want. Okay. Graviton and photon, choose which attunement you have outside of combat, and when using the attune action, you can select which attunement you wish to be. So you can just attune either way. Let's see, Revelations, Initial Binaric Assault. You coordinate your attacks with both your solar flare and solar weapon, make a strike with your solar weapon and a solar shot, each using your current multiple attack penalty, and both at the same target. You can make these attacks in whichever order you desire. If an attack hits, resolve the damage and effects, then swap your current attunement. This counts as 2 attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalty. If both attacks fail to hit, you become unattuned. Let's see, and then it goes Ascended Stability, then the reaction, you'll get this at 9th level. Triggered when an ability or effect would cause you to become unattuned. You take a fraction of a moment to recenter yourself and remember the balance that claims the violent spectrums of the cycle. You do not become unattuned and remain in your current attunement state. And at 15th level, you get Astrologic Sense. Single action, once per 10 minutes. You briefly meditate on your connection to the cosmos and how the interplay between stellar forces can affect your foes. For the remainder of your turn, if an action you take would result in a variable effect based on your attunement, determine the result of both effects. If this determination requires you to roll damage, then roll the damage. If it requires the target to make a save, then have the target roll the save. This only applies to damage effects that are specified in the attunement options of abilities, so things like the damage roll for your solar weapon are not determined in advance. Once you have determined the possible effects for both attunement states, you can select which of the two you would like to have occur, regardless of your current attunement. If the ability would change your state, you count as being attuned to whichever attunement state you selected to take effect. Cool. And your arrangement skill is Medicine or Society. If you select Degradant as your arrangement, You embody the slow degradation of all things. Your favorite attunement is Graviton. Your initial revelation is Black Hole, 2 actions, once per 10 minutes. You're Graviton attuned, and you concentrate on the gravitational forces around you, pulling matter towards you in an emulation of a cosmic event. Select any number of creatures within a 30-foot radius. Each creature takes 1d8 bludgeoning damage and must attempt a fortitude save against your class DC. On critical success, they're unaffected. Success, half damage, and they're pulled 5 feet. Failure, full damage, pulled 15 feet, and knocked prone. And on a critical failure, they take double damage, they're pulled 30 feet, and they're knocked prone. That's pretty cool. The advanced revelation for 9th level, Defy Gravity. You break the bonds of gravity, you gain a fly speed equal to your speed while you are Graviton attuned. And your greater revelation, Singularity, for 3 actions. This is a death effect. And Disharmony, whatever that means. You have to be Graviton attuned, and you can use this once per hour. You concentrate and manifest the pinpoint center of a black hole within 60 feet. This occupies a single 5-foot space. Creatures within the singularity space take 10d8 void damage with a basic reflex save against your class DC. Any creature dropped to 0 hit points by this effect is torn asunder and pulled into the singularity, leaving no remains. Until the end of your next turn, the singularity space and all adjacent squares count as an area of supernatural darkness that no creatures, even those with greater dark vision, can see through. Creatures beginning their round within the area of the darkness must succeed a basic fortitude save against your class DC or be slowed 1 for that round. Cool. And your arrangement skill is Deception or Intimidation. Okay, and the last arrangement presented here, Radiant. The light of a star shines more brightly than anything else in the cosmos, and you desire to shine just as brightly. Let's see, your favorite attunement is Photon. You get Supernova, Solar Wind, and Big Bang as your revelations, and Crafting or Diplomacy is your skill. Let's see, Supernova, 2 actions, once per 10 minutes. Of course, requiring Photon attunement. You unleash your pent-up aggression, causing it to erupt like the stellar events that end stars. You can choose to affect creatures in a 15-foot or 30-foot emanation. Each creature takes 1d8 fire damage and must attempt a fortitude save against your class DC. If you choose the 30-foot option, you instead deal 1d6 fire damage. Critical success, creatures unaffected. Normal success, they take half damage and they're dazzled for 1 round. On a failure, they take full damage and they are blinded for 1 round. And on a critical failure, the creature takes double damage and is blinded for 1 minute. Let's see, Solar Wind. You can partly discorporate your body, becoming a blur of stellar matter that travels carried by invisible solar winds. While Photon attuned, you gain a 10-foot circumstance bonus to speed and can move through the space of a single unwilling creature each time you stride. And then Big Bang, 3 actions. Miss Disharmony here again. Once per hour, you call upon the cosmic force that created the universe, unleashing a blast of purging cosmic fire that reverts all things to their basic components and overcomes even magical defenses. This fills a 30-foot emanation that deals 10d6 fire damage with a reflex save against your class DC. You and any number of selected adjacent allies are unaffected by this blast. Critical success, unaffected. Normal success, half damage. On a failure, full damage, 2d6 persistent fire. And a critical failure, double damage, 4d6 persistent fire. And you can attempt to counteract a spell on the creature using half your level rounded up as the counteract rank. Let's look at these terms. Attuned, you can't use abilities with the attuned trait while you're unattuned. Cycle, actions with the cycle trait change your current stellar attunement to its opposite state. When you take such an action with this trait, you benefit from the additional effect of your current attunement if that action had the attuned trait, but once you complete the action, your attunement changes to its counterpart. Disharmony. Actions with the disharmony trait change your current stellar attunement to being unattuned. When you take such an action with this trait, you benefit from the additional effect of your current attunement, but once you complete the action, you become unattuned. Okay, good to know. Let's see. Okay, so Indomitable Body and Mind gives you Expert in Fortitude saves, and when you roll a success at a Fortitude or Will save against a mental or incapacitation effect, you can choose to change your current attunement. Solarian Weapon Expertise, 5th level, you become Expert and you get access to the critical specialization effects. For your solar weapon, so even though you become Expert in all of these weapons, you only get the critical specialization effects for your solar weapon. Let's see, Pensive Assessor at 7th level. Your careful training and honed senses give you increased awareness of your surroundings. Perception goes up to Master. In addition, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks for initiative, which increases to a +3 if you have the Incredible Initiative General feat. Weapon Specialization, 2 additional damage, and then 3 at Master and 4 at Legendary. Willful Defiance, 9th level. Your proficiency rank for Will increases to Master, and whenever you roll a success against a mental or incapacitation effect, you get a critical success instead. Armor Expertise at 11th. Expert and Specialization effects. Solarian Weapon Mastery. Increase your weapon proficiencies to Master, and your proficiency rank for your Solarian class DC goes up to Expert. Controlled Body at 15. Master reflex saves, with the bump from success to critical success. Greater Weapon Specialization at 15th level, with 4, 6, and 8. Armor Mastery at 17th. Just Master at 19th level. Solar Paradigm. Your proficiency rank for your solar weapon increases to Legendary, and your class DC increases to Master. And second to last, we move on to looking at their feats. So, first level feat, Solar Shield. Your solar manifestations now include the ability to create a small shield. It doesn't require a hand to use because it floats. You can raise a shield, and it gives you a +1 bonus to armor class. Cool. Shield you don't have to hold, that's nice. When the shield is raised, you can use the shield block reaction with your shield. It has 5 plus twice your level hit points. No hardness. Your shield cannot be broken, but if it's destroyed, you cannot manifest a new shield for 10 minutes. If your shield vanishes due to you losing attunement, when you attune to reform it, it returns with however many hit points it previously had. The shield regains all its lost hit points during your daily preparations, or whenever you rest for at least 10 minutes, even if it's been destroyed. When you're graviton attuned, your shield has a hardness equal to half your level rounded up. And when you're photon attuned, when your shield is destroyed, adjacent enemies must succeed a fortitude save against your class DC, or be dazzled for 1 round, or blinded for 1 round if they critically fail. So, looking at this, when you shield block and use that reaction, the hardness absorbs some damage. And then whatever's damage is left gets applied both to you and your shield. Like, you both take the full damage of whatever's left after the hardness. So, if you're photon attuned, shield block doesn't absorb any damage. What it does is, if the shield's hit points are low enough that it actually is destroyed, what it does is it maybe dazzles your enemy, or blinds them perhaps, which is a good effect, don't get me wrong. But at that, you might have to spend multiple, reactions taking hits with the shield before it takes enough damage to actually break, and none of those reactions are saving you any hit points, so unless you're graviton attuned for those, and then you switch over to photon attuned when the shield gets low because you think you might be able to get a flashbang off with it. I like this because it's interesting. It does kind of suck that it has literally no hardness if you're photon attuned. Yeah. This one seems like a bad feat to me. Shattering Impact, 2 actions. attuned, flourish, Solarian, disharmony, so when you use it, you automatically become unattuned. Second level feat, so we're not expecting it to be too powerful. So shattering impact. You pour all your effort into making a single attack with your Solarian weapon that has such force it shatters the weapon. Strike with your solar weapon. Increase the size of the weapon damage die by 1 step, which is gonna average to like less than a point, or I think will average to 1 additional point of damage. And then your solar weapon shatters and must be manifested to continue using it. Which, fine enough. If you're graviton attuned, the target takes a -10-foot status penalty to their speed until the start of your next turn. And if you're photon attuned, they take persistent fire damage equal to half your level, rounded up. I could see this being worth doing if you're graviton attuned. Well, let's go look at the weapon again, because, well, if you're already photon attuned, you're dealing an additional amount of fire damage equal to half your level, which is going to be more than 1, you know. If you're graviton attuned, you're already making the area around them difficult terrain. I guess this is technically better because, like, 1 damage, but if they keep it for multiple rounds, maybe it adds up a little higher. And a -10-foot status penalty is like moving through 2 squares of difficult terrain, so it's a little bit better than just the adjacent squares. This is such a small effect. A 2nd level feat, 2 actions, and it does disharmony, so you lose your attunement. You were going to want to remanifest your weapon anyways, and you can do that for free when you attune, so that's not too bad. But if you do this, you're spending a 3rd action to reattune and manifest your weapon again. But if we look at, like, the fighter feats, Vicious Swing is a 1st level feat, 2 actions, fighter, flourish. This one's also a flourish, so both of them you can only use once per turn. You unleash a particularly powerful attack that clobbers your foe but leaves you a bit unsteady. You make a melee strike, it counts as 2 attacks for calculating your multiple attack penalty. I guess is a little better than Vicious Swing because Shattering Impact doesn't do that, but you don't have a weapon, so you're not going to be attacking again anyways. If this strike hits, you deal an extra die of weapon damage. Not 1 extra damage, an extra die of weapon damage. And at 10th level, it's 2 dice. And at 18th level, it's 3 dice. For a 1st level feat. I don't think this is a good feat. I think this is bad. It's very, very, very tiny improvements over what your base weapon's already doing for the cost of a 2nd level feat and losing an extra action. If you attacked twice, you'd probably do more damage than using this ability. And your graviton and photon attuned benefits are quite nearly as good even without using this ability. I don't know what this ability is good for, honestly. This one's a neat one. Constellation Vortex. You will into being a copy of your solar weapon, causing it to circle around you in a vortex that leaves constellation patterns in its wake. Any creature that starts its turn adjacent to you takes an amount of damage equal to the weapon damage of your solar weapon with a basic reflex save against your class DC. You can use a single action with a concentrate trait to add another weapon to the vortex up to a maximum of 3 weapons at any time. Each added weapon increases the damage of the effect by 1. The vortex lasts for 1 round before shattering, but you can sustain the vortex for up to 1 minute. You can spend 1 action to shatter your vortex early. When it shatters, the vortex deals an amount of damage equal to your level with the same type as your solar weapon, plus 1 for each additional weapon in the vortex, to all adjacent creatures. Once you shatter the vortex, you cannot recreate it for 1d4 plus 1 rounds. So, 2 to 5 rounds. If you're graviton attuned, you increase the damage of the vortex by 2 per weapon, including the first. And if you're photon attuned, add 1 fire damage per weapon, including the first. And every 3 levels, the damage for each additional weapon increases by 2. I like this feat. This is cool. This is a great feat for somebody who wants to be very upfront melee, very in the fray. They turn this on, they run up and they hit somebody. And if that person runs away on their next turn, you follow them and hit them. Or you sustain, follow them, and hit them again. And if they don't run, and you sustain, and then spend an action to add an extra weapon, and then hit them. And so when they start their turn again, now there's 2 flying constellation star weapon things, and you just follow people around, kicking their butt on your turn and kicking their butt on their turn. I like it. Okay, Flicker Strike is cool. 2 actions, level 8, attuned cycle, Solarian, teleport, whatever. You attack a target with your solar weapon, and use the speed of light to shift to another foe within range. Make a strike with your solar weapon. If your attack succeeds, select a creature within a range equal to your current speed. You teleport to any square in that range that's within reach of the creature you selected, and make another melee strike against that creature. However, if your initial strike fails, the one against the first creature, you don't teleport and the action ends. So, 2 actions to do 3 actions worth of stuff. This is an action-saving feat, but there's a little bit of gambling to it. To make up for that gambling, if you're Graviton attuned, you get to increase the range to double your speed. That means if you succeed, you can get 4 actions of stuff done because you're essentially striding twice. And if you're Photon attuned, if a strike made as part of this action is a critical success, and that could be either of the strikes, the struck target is dazzled until the end of its next turn. Okay, did you want to play Portal? Because that's what this ability does. Level 12 feet, 2 actions, Wormhole, attuned cycle, attuned cycle, and Solarian, frequency once per hour. So it's not going to happen all the time, but you can use this. You force a rip in space that acts as a tunnel to a nearby location. Create 2 wormholes in unoccupied spaces that are within 100 feet, visible to you, and at least 15 feet apart. If a creature enters the space of a wormhole, it emerges into any adjacent space to the other wormhole that the creature desires. If there is no valid space for that creature to enter, then both wormholes collapse, and the creature remains in the space where it entered the first wormhole. The wormholes last for 1 round before collapsing, but you can sustain the wormholes for up to 1 minute. The attuned effects of this ability only apply to your attunement when you created the wormholes. Let's see, if you were Graviton, a creature beginning its turn adjacent to a wormhole must succeed a Fortitude save against your class DC or be pulled in. And if you're Photon attuned, a creature entering the wormhole becomes concealed until the start of its next turn. Okay, another note on this wormhole thing. Back in 1st edition Starfinder, you can only be attuned while you were in combat. Very specifically, only while you were in combat. That is not explicitly stated here in this book, as from what I've been able to see. Most of the feats and stuff, most of this speaks about it as if your attunement is generally a combat thing, but there wasn't anything that specified that you couldn't, that I saw, that specified that you couldn't be attuned outside of combat. So, given that, unless that gets clarified and because they might be intentionally opening that up to be more free in the new edition, unless they clarify that with the proper release, this wormhole ability is really useful outside of combat too. It does require you be attuned, so if they do clarify that, then you can't use that outside of combat. But outside of combat, this is a puzzle solving feat. Now, let's be honest, 12th level, you probably everybody can fly, So what exactly problems you're using this to solve might be a little limited, but this is cool because it can solve problems. Let's see. There's no statement that you have to have line of effect here on the area it's just saying it has to be visible to you and, within 100 feet and 15 feet away from the other one that you're from the other spot you're putting the wormholes. They can't be closer than that. So, presumably, a glass wall, you can put a portal on the other side of that. I could see that being unintended functionality and getting cleared up. But, in a sci-fi game, you're going to have glass walls. Whereas in a fantasy game, that's pretty rare. So, we'll see if that one gets clarified. But that's a kind of puzzle this might be able to solve, is like getting through things that, oh, here's this fence with little holes. That could be useful. That could be very cool. Anywho, this one's also cool. 14th level feat, Stellar Shield Collapse. Free action, attuned, Solarian. You have to have the Stellar Shield. That's a feat you had to take early on to be able to use this. And this is triggered when the shield is destroyed while you have it raised. So raise shield, which means you'll raise it, you'll use a reaction to block an attack. The attack gets through anyways. The only requirement to use this, though, is that you have not used Black Hole or Supernova within the last 10 minutes. If you haven't used either of those in the last 10 minutes, then depending on which one you're tuned to, you immediately use that revelation as a free action. That leads to a question. The balanced Solarian, I don't think, got access to either of those revelations. Black Hole and Supernova aren't available to the balanced arrangement, so the question would be, are they still allowed to use this feat? There's nothing saying they can't, but that might have been an oversight. I could see that. So yeah, that's another thing that needs clarification. Homing Mote at level 18 would just be a straight up upgrade to your solar shot. Triple the range. And within the original range limitation, it ignores concealment and cover. I mean, it is 18th level, that should be really strong, but hey, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. Level 20 feat, one of the capstone feats. Perfectly attuned. If you'd become Graviton or Photon attuned, you instead become perfectly attuned. If anything requires you to be in a specific attunement state, perfectly attuned counts. And when you're perfectly attuned and use something that has a bonus for Graviton or Photon, you just pick whichever one works. This is just, I don't care about attunement anymore. Attunement does not matter to me. I am either unattuned or attuned. I don't care what I'm attuned to. You've achieved a perfect balance between gravity and light, or some such. It basically just breaks a lot of the restrictions that have powered. You know what? Actually, thinking about it, I was gonna say maybe that's actually not so good, because a lot of the class dynamic comes from the switching between attunements and being careful about when you do that and what abilities you use that are gonna force you to switch. And then this just kind of entirely cuts that out. But by this point, you're 20th level. You probably don't have much left in the game. If you do get to this level, there's probably not much left. So just having this ability to just be super powerful about your attunement and ignore a lot of the limitations you had before, that's not bad. No, I don't hate that. I think it really only works as a 20th level thing, because it is manifestly just eating into the game mechanics of the class and kind of chucking them out the window. But once you're at 20th level, you really just want to feel like a god, so fair enough. Now, their little blurb on playtesting. I'll read this up and I will throw you what I can pull out of it. Let's see, it looks like their first note on the playtest is that they did front load a lot of abilities for the Solarian, and they're asking if that leads to it there being a bit too much when you're first getting started. Wondering if maybe they should pare that down or streamline it in some way. Me personally, I love complex classes. Before the remaster, the Oracle was certainly considered one of the most complicated classes for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and people just didn't think that its power level was worth the work of keeping track of its complication, and I just really enjoyed it. It gave me something to do, I suppose. So, clearly, I don't think this class is too complicated. One thing they mention here in the playtest, in the blurb on playtesting, is that they've actually been using a coin next to their character sheet that they'll flip over depending on which attunement they're in, which is cool. I mean, we all love having little things at the table, right? But they're really curious here if that swapping between attunements is as fun as they're hoping it'll be, as they think it is. So that's one thing to keep in mind when playtesting the class. They like the revelations. They feel that the revelations are very much like ultimate abilities in video games, and they're hoping those abilities play out as epically at the game table as they would in a video game. And the last little note they have about the Solarian in this playtest is that they really built it for close combat. Even its ranged ability is a very short range, so they're trying to push the Solarian towards really close combat, upfront melee, and they're wondering if that works for a sci-fi game with lots of guns and stuff. So that is something that they are soliciting answers for from playtesters. So keep that in mind when playtesting the class, that's one of the specific things they're wanting to test out and see if it works. Anywho, but that's been the Solarian. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it feels very similar. Just on this first look, I think it feels very similar to how the Solarian felt in first edition, which is perfectly fine because the Solarian was its own unique thing in first edition. It wasn't a sci-fi version of a fantasy class. It was very much its own thing. In terms of the Pathfinder canon, one could argue that it probably takes a lot of inspiration from like Star Wars, because they're a sci-fi character with a glowing sword who cares about philosophy, and then there's balances and yeah. Anytime you have a character who cares about philosophy and has a glowing sword, you're gonna get that comparison though. So, I mean, I think the Solarian always has been pretty decently its own thing, and I'm glad to see that it wasn't like enormously changed going from first edition to second edition, or at least to the playtest. It really feels like it just got a tune-up. And I'm happy about that. Anywho, next time we will be talking about the soldier. Whew, look at that armor. That's some cool character art. Anywho, next time we'll be talking about the soldier. But until then, I've been your host, the Goat King. Thank you all for visiting the realm. And, as always, travel with loyal companions.